I picked this rock up out of a bucket full of what was supposed to be chert, but this definitely isn't chert. It's quartzite. This one has a cool range of dark grays with this nice gradient to red on the edge and a pretty accent line that runs through it. I want to try to capture that line, but I'm a little bit worried about this fracture over here, so I'll have to be careful. I'll start things off by getting a nicer, flatter surface to work with. Once it's looking good, I trim it down, and then I start working it into the shape. I always start with an 80 grit grinding disc. This material is really quite nice to work with. It shapes well, it's consistent, and it isn't taking too long to smooth out. Once I get it pretty close to the shape that I'm looking for, I like to dry it off so that I can dop it. Some people use wax for this, but I find superglue much easier to work with. I usually work on a few at a time, so this will sit overnight to dry while I work on something else. And now it's time to shape this mess into our dome. Once we've got our shape, we move down to the 180 grit grinding disc. Ugh, look at that icky stuff. Turn on the water drip, then I start with the edges. At this stage, I'm doing my best to get the shape just how I like it. There's a tiny speck here that I need to get out. I had hoped that the fracture wouldn't make it onto the cabochon, but it looks like we're stuck with it. Now that I've got the speck out and I've formed the shape into what I'm looking for, I'll move along to my first smoothing disc. It's a 220 grit, and it's on a rubber pad, so it's got some give to it. This will start removing some imperfections left over from the grinding discs. After a few minutes, we're ready to move on to the 325 grit smoothing disc. If there are any surfaces left that still need smoothing out, so anything that's unintentionally flat or has a face to it from me holding it too long in one spot on a previous disc, this is really my last chance. Now we move on to my favorite disc, the 600 grit. It's my favorite because this is where it really starts to shine. Let's work on it for a few minutes and then I'll show you what I mean. I've dried it off so that you can see the shine is starting to come through. It's certainly not done at this point, but this is where I start to feel like I can see the finish line. Plus, now that we're moving on to the 1200 grit smoothing disc, there aren't too many ways that I can screw things up. It's not like I can accidentally alter the shape when the grit is this fine. Some people stop after this disc, but I bought this extra smoothing disc from Kingsley North that's 3000 grit. It's kind of like an in-between. For cabochons where I really don't want to deal with the diamond paste, but I'm at least hoping it's nice enough that it'll be worth the extra time. So, what do you think? Worth the extra effort? I'm pleasantly surprised with how the fracture turned out. It's not nearly as noticeable as I thought it would be, and the colors look great. Now, it's time to start cleaning up. Ugh. Until next time.